Jimmy Page, a name that defines rock and roll. As the lead guitarist of Led Zeppelin, he revolutionized music with electrifying riffs, masterful songwriting, and a mysterious aura that still fascinates fans today. Led Zeppelin was more than a band. It was a movement. Their sound dominated the 1970s, filling arenas and inspiring generations of musicians. But alongside the fame, there was another side to rock and roll, a culture of unlimited excess, unchecked power, and relationships that blurred moral lines. Among these was Jimmy Page's relationship with Lori Maddox, a teenage model whose connection to some of the biggest rock stars of the era remains a subject of controversy and debate. What really happened? Was this just a wild romance typical of the 70s? Or does it reveal a darker reality of the music industry's past? Today, we take a deep dive into the story of Jimmy Page, Lori Maddox, and the rock culture that made it all possible. The 70s, rock, fame, and the groupie scene. The 1970s rock scene was known for its extravagant lifestyle, untouchable rock stars, and the emergence of the groupie culture. It was an era before social media, before intense media scrutiny, and before modern conversations about power dynamics in the entertainment industry. Rock stars lived without limits, with private jets, massive parties, and devoted fans who followed them across the world. The term groupie became widely used, referring to young fans who formed personal and sometimes intimate relationships with musicians. Many of these groupies were teenagers who idolized their rock heroes, becoming part of a scene that was widely accepted at the time. Among these well-known figures was Lori Maddox, a young model who was part of the Hollywood club scene at an age when most kids were still in school. She became one of the most famous groupies of the era, and her relationships with rock legends, including David Bowie and Jimmy Page, would later become the subject of controversy. The relationship between Jimmy Page and Lori Maddox. Lori Maddox was 14 years old when she entered the world of rock and roll's biggest stars. At the time, she was a rising young model, frequently seen at Hollywood clubs like Rodney Bingenheimer's English Disco, a hotspot for musicians, actors, and groupies. Jimmy Page, who was in his late 20s, was already a world-famous rock star, leading Led Zeppelin through their most successful era. By this time, Zeppelin was one of the biggest bands in the world, known for their wild tours, backstage antics, and legendary status. Reports suggest that Page became infatuated with Maddox and wanted to pursue a relationship. To avoid public scrutiny, he allegedly had his manager arrange for Maddox to be brought to private locations where they could spend time together away from media attention. Their relationship was kept highly secret, with Page reportedly instructing his team to keep Maddox hidden from public view. Maddox, in later interviews, has spoken about this relationship in different ways, sometimes romanticizing it as a love story, and other times reflecting on how young she really was at the time. The allegations of control and isolation. One of the most disturbing aspects of this story is the claim that Lori Maddox was not just a young fan swept up in the rock and roll lifestyle, but that she was actively kept isolated during her relationship with Jimmy Page. Unlike other publicized relationships between musicians and their admirers, Page reportedly took extreme measures to ensure Maddox remained hidden from the outside world, raising concerns about power and control. Some accounts suggest that Maddox was kept inside hotel rooms for extended periods, rarely allowed to venture out into public spaces. The alleged reasoning: to avoid media attention, legal scrutiny, and potential backlash. As even in the more permissive culture of the 1970s, such a relationship could have been highly controversial. It is said that Page personally arranged for Maddox to be transported in secrecy, often relying on his road crew and band members to escort her between locations to maintain discretion. Unlike other well-known groupies of the time, who often attended parties and were seen in public with musicians, Maddox was rarely photographed with Page. This secrecy has led some to argue that Page was fully aware of the implications of their relationship and took deliberate steps to keep it concealed. According to Maddox, she was not allowed to be seen in public with Page, which some interpret as a clear effort to control their interactions and prevent anyone from questioning the nature of their relationship. She has spoken about feeling overwhelmed and confused by the experience, admitting that at the time, she was too young to fully understand the implications of what was happening. The defense: a different time, a different culture. One of the biggest debates surrounding this story is how it should be viewed today. Some argue that rock culture in the 1970s was vastly different from today, and that relationships between young fans and musicians were normalized in the era. Maddox has publicly stated that she does not see herself as a victim, and she has not accused Page of wrongdoing. Others believe that judging past events through today's lens creates a distorted view, as these relationships were common at the time. However, modern perspectives have changed dramatically. Today, discussions about power, influence, and responsibility in the entertainment industry have led to re-evaluations of past behaviors. Even if relationships like this were considered normal back then, does that mean they were ethically acceptable? This is where the controversy lies. How did this affect Jimmy Page's and Led Zeppelin's legacy? Despite the controversy, Jimmy Page never faced major backlash for this part of his life. The story remained largely unreported in mainstream media for decades. Led Zeppelin's success was never impacted, and they remain one of the most celebrated bands in history. Unlike modern celebrities, Page was never asked to publicly explain or address his past actions. However, as times have changed, the Me Too movement and discussions about power dynamics in the entertainment industry have led to more scrutiny of past behaviors. Some fans have started re-evaluating stories like this, questioning whether rock stars should be held accountable for actions that were once overlooked. While Led Zeppelin's music remains legendary, the conversation about what was acceptable in rock culture and what was not continues. Page himself has never spoken publicly about this chapter of his life, leaving the story as one of rock's most debated and controversial topics. The story of Jimmy Page and Laurie Maddox is one of the most complex and controversial chapters in rock history. It raises serious questions about the past, the influence of fame, and how history should be judged today. What do you think? Should past rock star behavior be judged by modern ethical standards, or should it be viewed within the context of its time? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into music's untold stories and forgotten controversies.